Hey everyone, welcome back to 2 Hours on a Sunday. I'm Brian.
And I'm Nick.
And today we're talking about the movie Prisoners. And for those of you who haven't seen it, this movie is about two families who have their daughters abducted and resort to the police, Detective Loki, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, to help find their daughters. And when they do not do a well enough job, Hugh Jackman's character, Keller Dover, takes matters into his own hands and finds the suspect himself. So to kick things off, this movie ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. So I want to go around in a simple yes or no. Do you guys believe Detective Loki found Hugh Jackman?
Yes, he's solved every case he's been on.
Yep, I totally agree. He solved this one. He's solved the where is Keller Dover. Absolutely.
Yeah, same here. That's just the way that the movie has that's the way the movie's happened throughout the whole time you're watching it. You're confused and you're figuring it out with Jake Gyllenhaal, and you're seeing it, and you're step by step the truth is being revealed and he's finding it. I think if you look at it compared to all of the different things that he had to figure out leading up to this point, this is probably the easiest one. He's hearing the whistle and he's standing right beside the hole.
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
this isn't, the maze or the book or the Invisible Man, everything that we're going to get into, but he's right there. Go get him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just because the way the movie sets up Hugh Jackman as the ultimate survivalist, he has preparations for every scenario you could possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. And just the way they set up Jake Gyllenhaal is that, he's never not finished a case and he's never failed one in his lifetime. So just the way they built them up, leaving it on that cliffhanger, that cut to black, it leaves it up for the audience interpretation, but it's just good storytelling because we don't need to see that because he's going to find them. And after that point, it's just downhill from there because the consequences that are going to happen and resulting in him finding Hugh Jackman's character. So I think leaving it with the cut to black, you hearing the whistle, everything being silent, I think is the appropriate way to end this film.
Absolutely.
I'm glad none of us said no.
No, he died down there.
You're wrong.
It's Wolverine. Wolverine's getting out. It's not even a problem. And he also, because one of the issues with children, which is a bit of a spoiler point of a 2013 movie, so everybody can get over it. But
it came out in 2013.
So
yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
The children that were being abducted, they were, you saw it right at the end of the movie. They were constantly being drugged. So that was the reason that they kind of couldn't figure anything out and get out. If you're fully fit, athletic man who's, survivalist mindset already, and all you have to, how you got in, you're not drugged, it's going to wear off eventually. I think he gets out.
So to hop into the beginning of the movie, the two families are having Thanksgiving dinner. But I think what sets the movie apart is the idea of faith in this movie, and each character has their own interpretation of how they believe in faith. And the movie opens up on the Our Father, and it's a slow shot of a forest. Again, trees is another metaphor. They use trees a lot in this movie. But it opens up on a shot of Hugh Jackman and his son hunting a deer. And it opens up with him saying Our Father, which it segues into how he changes throughout the entire movie and how his faith changes. But it opens up on Thanksgiving dinner, and the girls want to go play outside. They have two daughters around, what would you say, 8 to 10 years old? I would say around there. And they say to them, you can go outside, but make sure your brother and her older sister go with you. So they go out there and they find an RV parked outside just around the corner. And these two girls go up to it and want to play on it. But we already can tell from how ominous and sketchy and broken down the RV is that it's not a good sign, because they open up with the RV driving past their house. So we kind of know that it's why are you showing this to us right away? Mm-hmm. But so the girls hop into it, but then the older siblings get them off. They go back, they have dinner. And the big plot point is they want to go to the Dover's house. The little girl wants to go back to Hugh Jackman's house. They have to find her whistle. And so she brings her friend, the other daughter, with her. But I think it's not a plot hole, but it's a little subtle thing where the parents didn't tell them, because they're kids, the parents didn't tell them, bring your brother with you this time. The first time they said, make sure your brother goes with you. But this time They never mentioned go get your siblings. They just said, okay, just make sure you come back, right?
I thought they did.
They never mentioned. So the kids didn't. They did not.
No, they did it. You're right.
Oh, I thought they
I
did.
actually missed that
Me too.
because they said it the first time, but then the second time they did not. And then when Keller and his wife come downstairs to check on like the older siblings or the older kids, they're like, we told the kids to come get you if they were going to go outside again. And they're like, no, they never did.
They said, "Oh, your sisters are supposed to come get you, or
Yeah.
whatever." Yeah, just like, where's your sister? And he's like, "I don't know. I haven't seen them since dinner." They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, they were supposed to come down and get you." He's like, "I haven't seen them."
So it's just that like reflex of
Yeah,
like,
that misjudge.
yeah, I think that's a testament to how those scenes played out. They like the rest of the movie is pretty like it's not slow, but it's like everything is very long and intentional. But that first couple of minutes to establish the plot, it happens relatively quickly. And like you said, like you don't catch it because it happens in quick succession, so your brain kind of fills it in. And that's probably like how they were feeling about it. They had dinner, they were socializing. None of that kind of registered because they thought they had just said it. So that's really cool how that worked and how it played out.
And then it immediately from that scene, it cut to a very long shot, a zoom in on that tree, right? Because everybody was having fun. The trumpets were playing, jokes were having, and all of a sudden it was like dead silent. And then to zoom in on this one tree in front of the house, and you know something was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Hugh Jackman runs to his house. He can't find them. And then they go for a mad search, just pouring rain. And then they realize the RV is gone. And the son says, you know, that RV was there. They were playing on it. And then at this point, Hugh Jackman loses it, right? He's like, why would you let them get close? And they're turning into the, you know, parents, and they're breaking down and they don't know what's going on. So immediately just like, do you remember what the RV looked like? And this is when they immediately call the cops, and Detective Loki is introduced, and he's sitting, you know, at a little diner, and it's pouring rain, and he gets the call, and then he finds the RV. Do you guys know why he rammed himself through the trees?
I didn't
Do you think
get
he was
that
trying to
one.
find a shortcut back to his aunt's house or something? Or do you think he was just panicking to try to like
I think he was just
distract or
he was
something?
just panicked, and you know, when it exposes him going to the police station later on and them commenting on his low IQ level and his immaturity, inability to communicate, just generally mental incapacity. He might not have ever been interacting with the police before, or he knew it was wrong, or all of a sudden he gets run up on by the police. So he's trying to, you know, you think he reverse, go forward. He doesn't know where to go. He just rams himself. I don't know how he so quickly dodged the branch that went like right through the driver's seat and then ended up like
Agreed.
on top, which is kind of weird. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe he planned it. Maybe he was trying to hide, you know, same panic type mentality, but I don't know.
I feel like the level of anxiety this movie kicks off, and it's like the clock is going. You're already like the prayer at the beginning. You're already like, okay, where we get the like 2 minutes, like you said, really quick of the happy family, and then it's like that shot of the tree and outside of the back of the RV. You're in it. You already know something's happening.
So at this point in the movie, Detective Loki brings Alex Jones into custody. And before they leave the scene of the RV, he tells everybody to get a search, you know, party, go through the forest. And then they found the ID of the RV. They bring it in, they search everything, and they want to go search the aunt's house. But when they alert Hugh Jackman that they have the man in custody, so at the point when they have to release Alex Jones, Hugh Jackman gets a phone call and he books it over there in his truck. And at this point, he physically assaults him in the parking lot as they're bringing him out. And Alex Jones looks at him and says, "They only cried when I left them," which is a real tense moment because you're like, okay, so it was him. It's another red herring where they're trying to throw you off of who's done it.
Yep.
Because we think it could have been him, but like we still don't know who it really was. So when he says they only cried when I left them, this sends Hugh Jackman into a whole another realm where he slowly starts disbelieving in the police and he wants to take matters into his own hands.
Right after he says that, if I'm not mistaken, it is the scene where he goes home to his family and tries to console his wife and his son. When the wife puts it on him that it's his responsibility to defend the family, why isn't where is she? Why hasn't he found her already? Right? That I think I watched that, and for me that was the moment that sent Hugh's character right over the edge. I mean, hearing the perpetrator say they only cried when I left them, to him that's like, it's we're as the audience right there with him. We're like, yeah, it's him right there. He just did it. That's him. So I think he hasn't lost his faith in the police at that point, because he's still trying to have conversations with them. He's still trying to say, you need to do this, you need to do that. But then right after that is when he says, okay, well, now I have to do something. I have to do something now.
Right.
So that's when he goes and stalks them. And then he hears the Jingle Bells variation that the kids were singing the day they got abducted. And I think it was those three things. It was the parking lot, it was the wife commenting, and then it was the Jingle Bells. And it was too many things, too much pressure to do something, and too much evidence in his own mind that it is him. It's done. It's done now. I'm doing something.
Now I have a question for all of you. The scene when he goes to stalk Alex Jones, when Alex comes out with the dog and he lifts him up, do you think Alex knows Hugh is watching him? Like, do you think, because he looks over at the car, right?
I've made note of that.
And he's showing his sign of like, I'm more than just an IQ of a 10-year-old, I think he's showing him something. Like, he's trying to tell him something.
Actually, I don't even know. I think I debated if he was looking at the camera, like, and the camera being Hugh. I debated that.
Yeah.
Like, because it was just spot on. It was just looking right at you. So I'm like, does he know that, well, he might know someone is there. He might know someone is in the car. But does he actually see that it's him? Does he actually see that it's Keller? I actually thought that the dog choking was the evidence or the foreshadowing of actually not foreshadowing, because they already brought this up, but the mental incapacity. Like, he doesn't really understand consequences of what he's doing. He's just kind of like, when you're a toddler and you're just kind of like, you act on impulse, so you just kind of, you don't understand the things that you're dealing with. So he's just doing it like, it just, there's no thought process there. That's what that said to me.
I feel like you saying that, it kind of like that first half of the movie, we're really in Hugh Jackman's perspective, I feel like, and then we flip at some point. And so I feel like from his perspective, you're like, yeah, oh my God, of course this is him. He did it. We see it. And maybe it's just like the way they filmed it, and that it's like, because at that point I was like, yeah, F this guy. Like, he did it. Let's get him. Like, I'm all on Hugh Jackman's side at that point. And then eventually, we learn about his mental capacity, Alex's. And so it does make me think now, maybe you're right. Maybe he didn't actually see him, and that's just the way he is.
But do you think, though, because as an audience, we're in the perspective of Hugh, this is the first time we see any personality change in Alex Jones. Do you think they're saying, okay, this is a clear hint? His demeanor's totally changed, but he's also stronger than he looks, because he's all frail and timid every time we see him, and he's all like closed off. But now he's like, with no question at all, he just lifts. It's like, so could he handle two little girls like that?
Right.
Without, like, his whole.
He's lifting a tiny.
I mean, it's just for us to give more evidence.
He's lifting a tiny dog. It definitely makes you
that
not
was a
like
thick
him.
dog.
It definitely makes you not like him.
Yes.
Why is John Wick successful? Like, just put a dog in it. Like, everybody will love him. Everybody loves dogs. Like, it definitely makes you not like him. But the earlier scene when Jake Gyllenhaal's character goes to visit Hugh Jackman's character in the house, and when you said, he was saying, well, why aren't you questioning him? Why aren't you doing this? It was revealed then. Like, Loki said it to him then, that, he took the lie detector test, but he doesn't understand it. He has the IQ of a 10-year-old. So we were told, early. And, even though I felt like also when he was signing his name as he was being released, and Loki was watching him, I felt like
Yeah.
Loki was feeling in that moment like, oh, you're putting on a show, like you're lying, like
Yeah,
that's
I
what
also agree
his
with that.
Me
face
too.
was telling me. So it's like, as the audience, they're trying to like kind of groom you to be thinking like, oh, this is bullshit, he completely did it. And then the parking lot happens, and then they show you him torturing the dog, and then Hugh Jackman gets the gun, and you're like, let's go.
Yeah. And at that point, the movie takes a massive turn because he comes up on Alex singing the song that his girls would sing at Thanksgiving, the Jingle Bells, and he puts a gun on him and he says, you know where my girls are? Like, where are my girls? And then it cuts to black. And at that point, he goes to
Franklin's house
to say, I got to show you something, bring a change of clothes, and don't say anything to anybody. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no. Then he brings them, because we find out at the beginning he has a separate property that his father once owned, but he doesn't want to fix it up because it's not important.
It's too
Right? It
expensive.
costs too much money. So he brings Franklin there, and he finds out that he has Alex Jones tied up. He doesn't want to be there at all.
No.
But he also doesn't want to stop him, right? So he beats this kid to a pulp. We don't ever see what he looks like until later, because we get to the point where, he doesn't want to have to hurt him. He brings out the hammer. He's like, I don't want to use this on you. I really don't. Just tell me where my girls are. I know you know. I don't want to have to do this. Please just tell me where my girls are. And he smashes the sink with the hammer, and it's just like, he gets to like a 13 on the Wolverine scale. And it's like, he's going berserk. And he just doesn't know what else to do because the kid won't talk, right? He doesn't understand why he won't just give up the information, because in his mind, he's looked in his eyes. He has everything he needs, from the parking lot telling Hugh Jackman that they only cried when I left him. The song, everything is lining up for Hugh Jackman to believe this is the only person that could have done this. And this is the only way to get past this situation to find his daughters, because, the days are going by. It's like day 2 of them being gone, right? Mm-hmm. And he just needs to find them. So I just want to ask you guys, at this point in the story, do you believe Hugh Jackman is justified in his actions? Or would you take Franklin's approach, where you everything is happening is wrong, but you're not the one to be the aggressor?
Do I have to pick either? It's so hard to say, because that situation just sucks. It really, like, watching that movie, I've watched it a few times, and it's very hard to watch because of the material of, like, the meat of the movie. It's like somebody's kids are missing. It's like it's so hard to just digest that for me, and I don't know what I'd do. I might lose my mind. I might not. I don't know.
I don't know. After the singing, if I was Hugh Jackman and I'm like, this guy's just antagonizing me the entire time. He's singing these songs, and I'm convinced that I just watched him show me strangle this dog. I feel like I would be, at first, Hugh Jackman, and then also at some point I would be Viola Davis's character. I would come in and also let him free at the same time. So somewhere in between that, but I was like, 100% I am on Hugh Jackman's side, even though he's not justified in it towards the end. But, like, I am all with him. I would totally be on that side of it. Unfortunately, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough. It's obvious that Hugh Jackman's actions are what everybody would want to do. It's the two parts of the brain. That's what Terrance Howard's character is. That's what Hugh Jackman's character is. You're supposed to say, no, it's still another human being. It's not the right thing to do. We need to go to the police. We need to trust the system. We need to blah, 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 blah. Every person that watches this movie, we look at Franklin and we're like, you're a wuss. Get out of here. Like, we're just, it's so ingrained in us. It's just so, like, I think everybody can feel that, like, especially with Hugh Jackman's acting. Like, for me personally, I would want to say that I would be Hugh Jackman in this scenario. Like, just to say, I'm on my daughter's team. There's no way that I'm ever letting this go. I don't know. I don't think anybody could know what they would be capable of in a situation like this. You just never know. In reality, I think everybody would just go with the police. I think that's just the typical. I think publicly we have to promote that method.
Yep.
but
Absolutely.
but
On the record.
everybody knows that that's how they feel. Like you feel that, and it's beautifully acted by Hugh Jackman.
Would you guys bring anybody in on your
No,
like? Would you call like say
No.
if this you would go
No,
solo, right?
100%.
I would never go to somebody and be like,
Brian.
I'm letting you know what's happening. Yo, Nick, I got you got to meet me here. Like I wouldn't let anybody know what I was doing. But I think they just wanted to give us the two sides, like everybody's how they're dealing with the situations, and we also side with Franklin, but Hugh Jackman is what everybody would want to do. And now at this point, the police are aware that Alex Jones has gone missing. I want to introduce the question. I'm going to start with one, but I want to introduce the idea of the three clues that are played out in this movie. And the first one, the first clue of where the girls are happens when Loki goes to see the aunt, Alex Jones' house, the aunt in the house. And he's talking to her. He says, we still haven't found, your nephew. And she's talking to him, and he goes into Alex's room to find evidence. And he goes into the drawer and he finds the toy RV car. At this point, we look up and there's a frame of her husband, and he has a necklace on. Now, at this point in the movie, we don't know what the necklace means. He puts the toy van on the desk and he pushes it, and it stops right in front of the aunt. So that is the first clue of three to say where exactly the girls are and who's behind it all. Watching it more than once, you realize, oh my God, this movie's telling us where the girls are without actually telling us. So the first clue is the aunt. And after he leaves, he's going to search for all the suspects, like sexual predators in the area. And he goes to the father's house, the priest in the area. And he breaks into his house because he looks in the window and he's passed out drunk on the floor. But he thinks there's something worse happening. But he finds out he's just been drinking too much and he's just passed out. And I love the line where he goes, "Father, you don't mind if I look around?" It's like the one comedic beat in the movie.
Yep.
And then he looks around and he walks past the kitchen and he sees this fridge. And for some reason, it's pushed to the wall, but the cord is like,
tight.
It's fully stretched out into the plug. And he's like, okay, why isn't it just in front of the plug? So it doesn't have to make that stretch. So he moves the fridge and there's a door behind it. And this is when we find out the priest has basically an underground pit where he hides like these statues of Mary and like Joseph and Jesus, and then we find a dead body in the basement. But Loki doesn't realize, but on that body is the necklace we saw of her husband. So he brings the body in, then he questions, he brings the priest in for questioning, and they find out that, the man confessed to kidnapping all these kids confidently. He said, he was confident about telling me that he's kidnapped 17 kids, but he never told them his name. So that was the first clue, was the minivan. And it comes back later because the toy van kind of pushes Jake Gyllenhaal into different ways later when he brings in Bobby Taylor. And this is when Bobby Taylor comes into the movie after they have the candle ceremony in front of the Dover's house, right, for the girls. And Loki's at the candle ceremony, and he comes across this like suspicious, sketchy looking guy playing with like a stuffed animal, right? And he looks at him and they both make eye contact, and then he kind of walks back from the crowd, and Loki still has his eye on him, but then he books it. And so he knows, okay. And then at this point, the audience is like, okay, who's this guy? Is this somebody else we got to be worrying about? But there is one question after we bring up the point where he goes to see this one woman who also lost her little boy years and years ago. He goes to investigate that, and she talks about this kid named Barry. And she replays this videotape over and over again because it's the only one she has of him. And she's talking about the day he disappeared. He was just playing in the front yard. The house that he goes to, do you think Alex parked that RV there because he's trying to remember where he lived? Because that was the house that, like, he's trying to remember who he was, because when he parked the RV at the beginning, that was the house that this woman was at.
Right.
Do you think he knows his past, like, kind of like he's trying to remember slowly that's who he was?
I think he does. I think he remembers because like in the shower scene, he says, "I'm not Alex. I'm not Alex." And
Yeah.
and I mean, we know he's driving the RV himself, so I think he has some bits that are mixed in with his LSD Kool-Aid brain he's
Yep.
got going on.
I think so too. I think, yeah, it's probably a lot of his past memories are locked away behind all the trauma that he's suffered, but he has some of it. He knows he's not Alex. He knows where he used to live, and that's why he went back there.
Yeah, no, agree. I think it comes in and out a bit more than that he just straight fully does know that his name is not Alex. Yeah, I think he probably has moments of clarity in that kind of sense. It's not like a static duality that he's coping with.
And Dana, you brought up an interesting point I was going to bring up later about the shower scene. And it's one of those blink and you'll miss it moments because the audio is so soft and he's at this point so brutally beaten that he can barely speak, but there's this little hole for him to speak through. And if you don't really hear it, if you don't have subtitles on, you'll miss it. But he says, he whispers, "My name's not Alex." Like he says it to Hugh Jackman as he's trying to break him down one last time because he's going to give him, he talks about the maze, right? He mentions the maze, but he says, "My name's not Alex." And at that point, you're like, okay, who is this kid really? And then you start to tie in all these other characters. But then we find this at this point in the movie, it changes, right? We start to shift. And that's when Detective Loki goes to Bobby Taylor's house and we think, okay, maybe it's not Alex, right? Maybe it's this guy's, because he goes into the house and he's acting all sketchy and he's like, "Oh, do you have kids?" And he's like, "No." "So why are you buying kids clothes?" He's like, "Oh, I must have, just grabbed him and gone. I was in a hurry or whatever." And he's like, "I don't buy this." And then he busts in the door, smashes his face off the wall, and he cuffs him and starts searching the house. But the house is covered in mazes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's drawn the
cool
same
set.
maze. He's drawn the same maze over the whole house.
It's terrifying.
And then he goes into this one room and there's like these heavy duty cases, like army cases, locked up. There's like 15 of them.
Yep.
And at this point, Jake Gyllenhaal's like, okay, and there's a pig head in the sink.
Oh.
Rotting. And like he brings Bobby Taylor into the cop car, locks him up. He calls for backup and he starts busting all these cases open and he finds all these bloody clothes. And then he finds a bunch of snakes. To me, I would have been out. I wouldn't even kept going.
It keeps going.
No thanks. There's snakes in every single one of them. And he starts opening all these things. And this is when Detective Loki bringing in the family to try to identify clothing. Mm-hmm. Because the scene before that, we saw Bobby Taylor break into
the Dover's house.
The Dover's houses and, Franklin's house. His daughter was in the tub, right? And he breaks in there. And then he breaks into, this is when the mom thinks Anna has come home, right?
Yep.
She's like totally gone at this point.
Yep.
And then the son's sleeping, but he ends up jumping out of her bedroom window and she thinks, Anna was here and everything's going crazy. And that this key point doesn't come back until later when Jake Gyllenhaal goes to figure out that the girls are still alive.
Yep.
But he brings the family in to identify clothing and both families identify pieces of clothing. And at that point, they both believe the girls are gone. Mm-hmm. And at this point, Franklin brings in his wife, Viola Davis, and they bring him to the old house. And at this point, this is the first time we see what Alex looks like in about maybe like 20, 25 minutes.
Yep.
She pulls off the towel off of his head and he's just, it's something you don't want to ever see. Right?
Yeah.
It's this kid, he's like, "I can't do anything else because I'll kill him," right? Hugh Jackman's like, "I can't do anything else."
Yep.
And she's at this point, it's like, you feel so much for Viola Davis because we've had the aggression. Now she's like the quiet, like, just please tell me. Like she's the one to give you a hug kind of thing. Like there's a totally opposite. Like he's gone through all this. Now he's dealing with someone who wants to let him free, right?
Yeah.
She knows this is wrong. And at this point, Hugh Jackman, he's now fully into the alcohol and he goes home and has a dream. And in this dream, he sees his daughter, Anna, and she gives the clue about the whistle, right? She says, "Oh, I found it. But it's just foreshadowing that Hugh Jackman's the one to going to be finding the whistle. So that's the clue that she's still alive. And like the whistle is going to be a bigger factor into this movie than, the beginning made it seem that it's just some toy whistle. Moving forward, Detective Loki is questioning Bobby Taylor, and they're just sitting watching him draw all these mazes. It's probably been like 12 hours, and he's just like, he's so tired of him just drawing mazes. He goes in there and gets aggressive with him. And then 2 other cops come in, and then Bobby Taylor pulls the gun off one of them and ends up committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Now the maze. This is all he can think about is this maze drawing. It's like, where has he seen this maze drawing? And this is where the RV toy comes in handy again. Because he has the toy in his desk, and he pushes it again, but it bumps into all the evidence.
Yeah.
All the photographs of that dead body that was in the basement, right? As he's doing that, he smashes the keyboard, and then I don't know how they would have done this. All the pictures must have been the same photo, but when he messed up the desk and the one picture ended up so the camera can see it perfectly,
Yeah.
I have no idea how many takes it would have taken to do that. But to see the necklace coming out of the folder, right?
Yep.
And then he knocks it all onto the ground, and then he knocks it, and then the toy car falls off and lands on top of it, so he looks down, and that's when he notices the necklace. But to go back to about the son confronting Hugh Jackman, and they have this whole argument. It's like, oh, you've been drinking. This is clue number 3. I don't know if you guys caught this, but when Hugh Jackman pushes his son up against the wall and he takes a step, he knocks over the dollhouse. And in that dollhouse, a doll falls out of it. Because there's 2 girls, right? But it showed one doll fall out.
Ooh.
It's showing that the other daughter Joy will escape.
Oh my god.
She's one to escape.
That's cool. I did not notice that at all.
Yeah.
That's a great
it was like
one.
the 3rd watch of me realizing that there's other things going on other than. So yeah, it's just telling us as viewers that the girls are alive and they're still in the house.
I like how they included those clues for us as much as they were, like, especially the RV for Detective Loki. It's a clue for us. Like the first one when he pushes the RV in front of Alex's aunt. Like that's not for him. That's for the audience because he wouldn't see that perspective. That's specifically for us.
But it's also for rewatchability. Like
Exactly.
you wouldn't notice that the first time, right?
No.
All these clues adding up. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah. Same with the dollhouse. Like that is entirely for the audience. But the other clues, I like how they did the RV twice. Once for us, once for Detective Loki, because I think it's like there's got to be something. Like you gotta give that guy, throw that guy a bone. Like he's been through so much with this case. Something has to, give and spark his thought process.
And we got to give props to Paul Dano in this movie, right?
That's Alex.
Yeah, everything
I've
he
watched
does
the
is
interview.
awesome.
He's like, I watched the interview and he was like, it's one of those roles you don't want to do, but you just have to do it. He acted the hell out of this movie.
He did. I
I don't want to jump ahead, but there's the scene when he's in the cut of just his eye from the darkness. Oh my god. You can just see so much emotion in just in one eyeball, or maybe it's 2, I can't remember, but
It was one. Yeah, it was one.
It's such a terrifying shot too.
Yep.
But yeah, we get to the shower and he brings Viola Davis and Franklin back, Nancy and Franklin, and he shows them what he's built, right? And he's at his end, right? He can't do this anymore. Yep. And at this point, Hugh Jackman's like, you know what? If you want to let him out, let him out. So he's like, start with that board right there. So he takes the crane from him. He goes to open it, and then Viola Davis's character, she stops him.
Yeah.
And she's like, think of our daughters.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's not giving anything at this point. It's like, would you guys still keep him in? Like, would you still go with it? Like, I don't think I could do it.
I don't even think you can let him go, because if you're like, I think the audience's perspective or opinion, it definitely starts with Hugh Jackman. You're hoorah, let's go, let's get him. But you do morph to Franklin as Keller loses his faith at the same time that he gives you that they're in a maze clue. And us as the audience, the dramatic irony of it is that we are also following Loki's investigation, and so we're being exposed to the other maze elements of this. Keller isn't. Keller doesn't know what this maze is. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But we, as the viewer, know that mazes are important, and we don't know why. We're not entirely sure, But this is the first time in the movie that Loki and Keller's journeys through the maze of finding their daughters, that's the first time their journeys connect. And they don't know it, but now at this point is where the audience starts to follow Viola Davis, because she's saying we can't let him go. Like at this point, we can't let him go. Even at this point, he's involved somehow. He's involved somehow. Like, you can't let him go. On top of the point of you're probably going to jail forever if you do let him go and it gets out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you don't know that it's not him. You can't. You can't let him go. I don't know if I would get to where Hugh got, but if I did, at that point in the movie, I'm for sure not letting him go. That's definitely not happening then.
Yeah.
If I got there, you're staying. There's nothing. And I think
Stay in that shower.
I think we start to see Keller lose his faith when he identifies the missing clothing. I didn't view it as that he has hope still. I viewed it as he has nothing left. And this one person that he has left, this Alex Jones, he's not letting him out. He's not, he's losing himself. He's losing his faith. He's losing everything. I guess he does have hope in the sense that, he doesn't know what else to do. He's just holding on to Alex. Just hoping that something comes from it. But, his whole life is shattering around him.
Yeah, he'll slip or he'll give him something.
Every other part of his life is shattering, So I guess it's hope, but it's also, it's breaking him.
Because now we're getting into the part of the movie where Joy escapes. And that's when all Hugh Jackman's faith is kind of kicked in back into another gear, because he first thought they were gone forever. Now there's hope again. And the scene at the hospital, he's questioning Joy, but she's knocked out, and everyone's like, you can't be doing this right now. And he's like, no, I need to know. And then she says to him that you were there, because he goes over to Alex Jones' aunt's house to apologize, for scaring her at the police station or whatever. He now, everything comes to a halt, and he books it out of that hospital. It's like, what do you mean I was there? And he realizes where they're at. When he gets in that truck and he hauls it over the freeway, it's like, this man is on a mission.
Oh, yeah. And Detective Loki's chasing after him, and he's like, I know where he's going.
Yeah. But he doesn't.
And he goes to the wrong place.
Goes to the wrong place, and he finds Alex, though. He finds Alex. But so my only thing about this, I understand he's going because it's day 6 and she could be gone forever at any point. As a survivalist, this movie's built him up. Do you think he should have been better prepared going into that house, knowing there's something suspicious with the house? Because he kind of walked in and she had the towel over her hand, she burnt herself. But do you think he should have been more prepared for her catching on to him?
100%.
Yeah.
1,000% yes. Bring Detective Loki.
Tell someone why you're.
Yeah, I have a hunch that this is literally the one plot point. I'm just this could have gone avoided entirely if he just was I don't know, maybe let's talk to somebody about it now.
It's also not his character to, aside from trying to bring Franklin in, I think maybe he was looking for comfort and strength from Franklin and reassurance in torturing this kid. But as far as making decisions and doing what he's going to do, he's always been impulsive. He's always been very strong, opinionated, strong beliefs, strong faith. That's his whole building block, is that he's very emotional, very passionate. To him, it's the old woman there. He's bringing a bag of tools in. Maybe he's thinking, I'll just beat her with a hammer if I need to.
Big gun in it.
Or,
because he has the gun in there.
He does have the gun in the bag. Yeah. I can remember that part, but I was thinking, if anything, he could have just put a gun in the bag too, if he didn't, but even if he did. So even that, he is still if anything, I'll have this in case, so it's kind of I don't think you can expect. It's tough to expect, and maybe from someone who
Because
is
he doesn't know she
maybe from
knows.
someone who is anticipating the end of the world, you should expect, anything.
Like have a pocket knife on you or something, at least.
Well,
I thought
be
maybe.
unsure if, how she would be able to overpower him, which, he goes in and
Yeah.
he questions her, and then she pulls the gun on him, which, it is a jarring image. An older woman with a firearm. You're not going to expect it. You might expect it, but you still, it's not your first thought. He's got
Now
a
I
gun
do.
too. He's got a gun too.
Yeah.
So he's, but he didn't draw it first. And, definitely probably didn't expect the Kool-Aid. So it's a tough,
The purple Powerade.
it's a tough one, Yeah. I mean, you look back at it and you're like, yeah, you should have had someone go with you. But if you're that character, if you have that personality, if you have that mindset, this goes to his desperation. This goes to his, he's lost everything. He might have that one last hope in holding Alex prisoners, but he said it talk anyway. But he's mercilessly questioning Joy as she's half conscious. As the viewer, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, this is too much. Like, you're doing too much, dude. This is crazy. Like, you're I mean, not crazy, but in the moment you'd be like, yeah, she's clearly not able to answer you. Like, what are you doing? And it just shows you how he's not there. So then realizes, boom, goes to the house.
Now, do you think, even though she has a gun, and I know he doesn't want to lose the last lead he feels like he has on his daughter, do you think there's any way he could have overpowered her?
When he was getting close, when she told him to put the cuffs on, he was like 2 feet away from her.
Yeah.
I feel like he could have, when she was going to get the drink out of the fridge, I feel like there was something he could have done.
You got to remember, Brian, he's not Wolverine in this movie.
Yeah, but one bullet he could turn with his arm, is not gonna. I don't know.
I don't know.
There could have been. There could have.
The closer that he gets to her too, the bigger of a target he becomes. So it's less area for her to miss. It's less ability for him to maneuver. Like Dana said, it's not. That's the last lead he has. Again, it goes to that's not his character. You see it throughout the whole movie of them navigating this maze to try and find the daughters. Loki is going to do it by the book. He's going to follow the clues. He's going to uncover the truth. Hugh Jackman is just going to run through the walls. He has not exhibited this whole time that he has any savvy to figure out the clues. He wants to beat the answers out of whoever he can. He can't figure it out. He's too emotional. He's not going to be able to do it. He's just, you're here, tell me where they are. Okay. You're here, tell me where they are. Okay. And then he comes in front of the aunt, and maybe he could think, oh, I'll search the house after I beat her down. But thinking, it's not really, that's not him,
I get what you're saying, Brian, because it's almost like you said, Jesse, he's very I'm going to get the answers from you by any means necessary. It could have gone through his head that he was going to maybe jump her to get the gun. But this, Dana, you said, this is his last opportunity. This is his last chance to actually uncover the truth. If he slips up and he makes a wrong move, he's done. So he can't risk that. This is the only time that he's I got to hold off for 1 second here.
Right.
He actually has to be patient.
Because he also doesn't know Detective Loki is also close to the answers, right? Because he was so against him the whole movie. If he would have teamed with him, if he was patient with him, he doesn't know Loki is right on his tail. Because after he found Alex, he rushes to the aunt's house to tell her.
Yep.
And that's when we get the whole reveal. He sees the picture again because he knocks on the door and the aunt doesn't answer. But at this point, she's trying to drug Hugh Jackman's daughter, Anna.
Yep.
and he's walking through the house and he gets into their bedroom again and he sees the image. And that's when he sees the husband again and really looks at the medallion. And that's when he clues in. He pulls his gun, right away. And he's searching the house and he finally realizes that he's in the place that he's supposed to be. And he's finally, all the clues have led him here. And this is when he, although I do think when he finds her in the room, I would have shot. Like, she was standing up. You don't
You don't
he's
wait.
like, I know you're trying to be a cop, but like, you're giving her a full opportunity. She has a gun on her. So that's the only, and then they shoot each other and he gets shot on the side of the head and he's bleeding out.
I mean, he knows procedure probably because he's like, if they do like an autopsy and they're like, the bullet entered through her back, he's gonna go to jail.
Yeah.
Even though he got the right person.
Yeah.
But like a warning shot or something, he found the daughter. Like, this is the culprit, right? You're gonna risk you getting shot over startling her and then making your way so you have a better angle at her. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he gets shot. He ends up shooting her 2 or 3 times. She's on the ground. And I think this is the most, we've been tense this whole time, but the amount of tension when he picks Anna up, puts her in the car, and he's driving, he's got blood in his eyes and he slowly can't see because he's, losing consciousness because he got shot in the side of the head.
Yep.
And you look in the back seat and you see Anna, she's spitting up because of all the toxin and the drugs that's being put into her. And like, there was a couple of times where you thought, is he going to black out? Because at this point, Hugh Jackman's in the hole, right? She leads him to the hole, drops him in there, and he finally wakes up. He pulls through, ends up into the emergency, and we get a fade out of him saying, please, somebody help me. And then we get the scene where, Loki's patched up, and then Anna comes in to see him, and then she has the whistle on. And so as an audience, it's like, okay, where's the whistle? But then we find out her mom got her a new one because she keeps saying, I lost it somewhere. I lost it after Thanksgiving kind of thing. But Loki, the case isn't finished. We found the daughters, but now he has to find Hugh Jackman. So he goes back to the Joneses' house and they have like a unit there digging up, trying to find evidence and stuff like that. Hugh Jackman, when he's in the hole, he has a light, right? He has a flashlight and he finds the whistle. All the guys go home and Loki's just sitting there. It's like, something is not right. Like, the case isn't finished and the guy shut the lights off and he's just standing there in the dark. Then you hear a faint whistle and he thinks to himself, like, am I hearing things? Because he just got out of the hospital, right? Nothing can be really happening here. And then he hears it a couple more times and a really loud one. And he turns, looks towards the car, and then it cuts to black.
I loved going back to the scene where Loki is driving Anna to the hospital. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, merely for the fact that it's so tense and they display it visually perfectly. Like, you can't see, you see what Detective Loki sees, which is like almost nothing. He's got blood in his eyes, the flashing of the lights.
It's raining.
Like, all the cars, the headlights in front of him and behind him, like, everything's so obscured. It's just such an amazing scene. And I looked it up. So they tried their best to use like natural light for most of this movie. They didn't have like, a typical set where you would have a bunch of lights. And that's I think is where they illustrate it probably the best, where it's like that flashing of the blue light inside his car. Yeah. It's like, I'm looking at him like, ow, 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 ow.
And all the street
broad
lights.
Daylight. And like, it's such a tense and like visually challenging scene because that's exactly what he's going through. I thought they did such a good job with that.
But before we give our final thoughts, I wanted to bring up one question about any plot holes you found in the movie. And I don't think it's a plot hole, but I think it's one faulty aspect of it. When at the beginning, when he first finds Alex in the RV and he tells everyone to send a rescue unit or like a search team to the Joneses' house, they know that RV is, licensed to them and they're searching the premises. You're telling me they don't search the other vehicle that they have if they've already found the suspicious one to find like underneath the plank of wood that it's sitting on? Yeah. That's the only thing. I'm like, you sent the whole search team to this house and they didn't inspect the other car that's licensed also to this RV. That's my only thing. I'm just going to leave it out there for you guys to comment on.
Yeah. I agree with that, because even if it is just like the piece of plywood under the car is like to catch dripping oil, it's like, I don't know, it's a functioning car. I mean, it looks like it's not, definitely, but they did a pretty casual once over, I think, of the property.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wasn't too thorough.
Right. But I think, do you think that's also because the chief of police doesn't care?
Yeah, he's way too laissez-faire for my taste.
That's the only thing I found. I'm rewatching it for like the 7th time. I was like, you're telling me they didn't actually give a good search to this property?
Yeah.
You know? But
To find a really suspicious hole
That's fair. That's fair.
in the ground.
because if Loki was there doing the search, he would have probably, there's something, because even when they were searching at the end of the movie and he was going to the search team, they were digging on like the side of the house and the car was still there. It's like, you're not, getting everything off the property to search, like, because they brought the RV into the police station. You're not going to bring all their other vehicles in as possible connections to, this kidnapping. Any general questions you guys want to bring up we can discuss before we give our final thoughts?
Yes. Well, if you saw one box and you opened it and it was full of snakes, would you, and jumped, like, as a reaction, would you jump at the second box that you opened? Because I wouldn't. But Detective Loki definitely
I don't remember
did.
in the first box, was it exclusively snakes?
It was covered in
bloody clothes,
and the snakes were underneath one of the sheets he pulled off.
And he was yelling out Anna, wasn't he?
I think he was.
So
I think he was.
did he think
What?
that they were in
They were
the
in there.
suitcases?
I was going to ask
In
that
there.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's what
Which
I
is
thought.
so disturbing,
I
I
mean,
thought.
it's another one of those, like, you're in the moment and you don't want to, or don't, like, but you should, or you think it's like, okay, I have to, like, it's that Hugh Jackman, like, I don't know if I want to do this to someone, but you watch it and you feel it, you're like, I have to. You have to do it. And you're him and you're looking at it and it's much lower level, but you're like, snakes, I don't want to do it. But then you see bloody clothes and you're like, okay, here we go. Like,
Gotta open the other
Yeah.
13 boxes.
Because the second he took him down, he started yelling, like, after he saw the pig head and everything, knocking down doors, he was yelling Anna's name, and then he saw the suitcases, and, then he was like, oh my God, like, our kids are in these cases? And that's when he started busting them open. But,
Right.
I mean, he didn't really yell in the second one, Nick. He was like, ugh, like,
He like just he reacted. I laughed at that because I was like, no. I know. There's snakes in this one too. You got one case of snakes, you have 2 cases of snakes. That's all I'm saying.
I thought overall the maze metaphor and kind of how they tried to, like, interweave that book and everything into it, I don't know if that was really necessary. I don't know if I see it as a plot hole, maybe more so as maybe a weak plot point, because I think the religious aspect, and, I know that the book was also used as a way for Bobby to legitimize Bobby's, persona that he takes on, where he carries on and redirects his trauma. But I think, regular PTSD explanations, regular religious, radicalism explanations, I think that could have done the job and maybe been a bit more clear cut to the audience. But maybe they were trying to be, a bit more spy novel, maybe not spy novel, but, a bit more detective, a bit more confusing. Maybe they're trying to be mysterious with it. For me, it took a little bit away, just because I was trying to figure other stuff out rather than it being just a kind of a detective story. It was also like a puzzle. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to do a puzzle now. I don't want to. Yeah. So maybe just a week.
I agree with that. For me, I was like, wait, did we get a resolution to this maze thing? And it's just like, oh, that was a thing that they were given when they were captured. and like that's the thing that they kind of latch
It's
onto
not the strongest.
in terms of their like PTSD. Yeah.
For a genuine like third of the movie, because I hadn't watched it in a while, I was like, okay, the maze. And then I was like, yeah, so when he gets in that hole, there's a whole I was like, is there a whole maze down there that I've forgotten about? And then, yeah, we didn't really see that resolution. So
It's like the maze in the Goblet of Fire in the third challenge. It's just not in the movie, but it's in the book.
exactly.
It's in the novelization of Prisoners.
I think it was more of the idea of that these kids are never being set free, right? Because the last maze in the book is unsolvable, whereas the metaphor of the maze is how these characters are fighting these ideas and these emotions in their heads, and they can't escape them. I think the whole idea of, Hugh Jackman going down this path that he normally doesn't go through, and then being stuck in this maze that he can't find his daughters, right? It's a whole puzzle. And then Loki being stuck in the same maze, the idea of him looking at these drawings and like not understanding like what does this maze mean? He's also stuck in this personal trauma. Like the whole metaphor of the maze is the trauma that these characters go through, where we're stuck in the middle for so long trying to find the correct path. By the end of it, the characters kind of make their way out of it. So I think the maze is a metaphor, but I also think like you, Dana, the first time I did watch it, I was like, well, where's the maze that these kids are being put in?
yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a physical maze I get it.
It's just a mental trap, right? It's mental. Everything's a trap, like Bobby Taylor. He's all trapped with the idea of this maze, but the maze isn't real. But he's so sucked into wanting to complete it he wants to be free of his own mind. Like completing the final maze he'll never do, but he's so stuck in it that he's never gonna, break that barrier.
Get out.
So what are your overall thoughts on the film to cap it off?
It's an A+.
Stressful.
Yes.
Stressful.
A+. Yeah.
I love going back to it. It's a heavy movie though, and I have to say, watching it on a Sunday morning is not something I would probably do again. It's more for like a Friday, Saturday night kind of deal.
I mean, it's one of those where it's like, is there any really good time to watch this, or you just have to do it?
Yeah, 10 out of 10 on obviously the dramatic acting. It was amazing. Your emotions, like I felt like most of the time, like you said, Nick, I'm following along and I'm like, I've already seen it. I'm like, what is going to happen? But the makeup, the cinematography was amazing. The scene that we all loved in the bathroom with the hammer and whatnot, it's such a small bathroom and they shoot it kind of like, I don't know
confined.
Confined.
Yeah, it's a straight shot. Yeah.
And there's so many other scenes like that in the whole movie that I think just add on to that anxiety and that stress and that like, feeling that you have for most of it. And I wanted to mention when Hugh Jackman is just so desperate at the end and he drinks the LSD cocktail and the way he drinks it is just like the desperation is crazy to him. And yeah, 10 out of 10. A great murder mystery because it wasn't as obvious. All the red herrings were not so crazy that you could go there with them, and keep yourself surprised for every time you watch it if you're me.
I think that going back to what Dana said about the camera shots, there's a lot of moments where the camera is it doesn't move. There's no handheld cameras. He lets it just sit there, right? It's either a still shot or it's like a slow zoom pull in, right? Or then there's that scene, he does that through the whole movie until the scene where Jake Gyllenhaal's rushing to the hospital. It's very cut. Everything's happening so fast. From top to bottom, for 2.5 hours, this movie does it so well where halfway through it introduces Bobby Taylor. So it restarts in your mind as like, oh my God, there's more tension, new suspects. So you're not thinking about how long this movie is, but at 2.5 hours, it's perfectly paced. The story was perfectly told, and ending on that cut to black, there's no way this movie's not below a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10. So aside from the nitpicks, because I've seen it like 7-8 times, but there's so many things you can watch going back every time to keep you, seeing new things. So I think, it's on my, top 10 of all time. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening. And if you also have seen this movie Prisoners and liked our ideas and liked our thoughts, please comment below. I want to thank Dana and Jesse for hopping on this podcast. giving us their insight. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. I definitely didn't think about some of the things that you brought up, and I'm glad we had your perspective on it today.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Nick, and this is 2 Hours on a Sunday.
Catch you guys later.